Power dies the moment it becomes common. The world never respects the man who is always there. It consumes him, then discards him. Machiavelli understood a brutal truth. What is common becomes cheap. What is rare becomes feared. Gold holds value not because it shines, but because it is scarce. So does power. The kings of old never sat among the crowd. They appeared like eclipses, rare, distant, untouchable, forcing others to wait, to wonder, to tremble. The less you reveal, the more they imagine. And imagination is always more dangerous than reality. Scarcity is not weakness. It is strategy. When you limit access to yourself, you create hunger. When you withdraw, people chase. When you control your presence, your absence becomes a weapon. Stop trying to be liked. Stop making yourself easy to reach. Machiavelli's formula is simple. Appear less, demand more. And watch the world treat you like a prize, not a pawn. If you are always available, you are worth nothing. If you are scarce, you are untouchable. That's when people begin to fear losing you. Scarcity does more than protect your value. It builds an aura, an invisible force that makes people tread carefully around you, afraid to lose your favor. They begin to interpret every move, every silence, as intentional, as meaningful. You stop being just a person. You become a presence. This aura is dangerous because it changes how people behave. When they can't reach you easily, they stop taking you for granted. When they can't predict you, they obsess over you. When they can't control you, they start to respect, even fear you. This aura isn't mystical. It's practical psychology. Machiavelli saw it in Renaissance courts. The ruler who limited his appearances became the axis around which all intrigue revolved. Nobles whispered, speculated, competed for proximity. The prince barely lifted a finger. His scarcity did the work for him. You can build the same aura today. It takes discipline, not arrogance. Never explain why you're unavailable. Never justify your silence. Let people wonder. Let them talk. Let them chase. If they're unsure where they stand with you, they'll try to earn your favor. But remember, this aura is dangerous not only to others, but to you. The power it brings can tempt you into complacency. You might start to believe your own myth, to think that your scarcity alone makes you untouchable. Machiavelli warned against this. Power built on. Perception still requires real strength behind it. If you are scarce but weak, they'll see through you. If you are scarce and strong, your legend becomes unshakable. The goal is balance. Be visible enough to remind people you exist, but rare enough that they crave your presence. Be approachable enough to avoid hatred, but distant enough to command respect. That tension, not too close, not too far, is where true authority lives. Those who master scarcity don't just hold power, they radiate it. They walk into a room and everyone feels it, because everyone has been waiting. Their absence has already spoken louder than their words. Their presence only seals the impression. Important, untouchable, dangerous to cross. This is the Machiavellian art of scarcity done right. It doesn't just make you respected. It makes you feared, and more importantly, it makes you needed. Human beings are irrational when it comes to value. We rarely judge something by what it truly is, but by how hard it is to get. Machiavelli understood this flaw in human nature. and turned it into a weapon. His words were clear. Men esteem lightly what is easily acquired. If you want to raise your worth, make yourself rare. Why do people worship gold? Not because it's useful. Most of its uses came long after its worship began. They value it because it's scarce. Apply the same principle to yourself. If you're everywhere, your value collapses. If you limit yourself, if you ration your presence like a king who opens his gates only for the worthy, you become priceless. Scarcity creates tension. When people can't have you on demand, they wonder what you're doing, who you're meeting, what plans you're hiding. Their imagination magnifies your power. The less they see, the more they assume. A ruler who hides his movements seems omnipotent. A man who doesn't answer every call seems important, untouchable. Modern life teaches the opposite. Be constantly connected, constantly responsive, constantly available. But constant availability kills power. Predictability is death to authority. When people can map your every move, they stop fearing you. They stop valuing you. You become like water flowing through the streets, useful but ordinary. Machiavelli studied rulers who weaponized absence. They vanished from court for weeks, making nobles nervous. They delayed decisions, forcing subjects to beg for action. They restricted access so tightly that every audience became a privilege. Even those who hated them feared being excluded. Scarcity breeds desire, but more importantly, it breeds dependence. Look at your own life. The colleague always free for lunch is ignored. The friend who always says yes is taken for granted. The lover who's always available loses allure. Human nature is cruel. We don't respect what we can easily have. But when something becomes hard to obtain, we assume it must be valuable. This is the psychology of scarcity. We chase what retreats and ignore what approaches. Show them everything. They'll grow bored. Hide yourself. They'll stay awake, wondering who you are. Machiavelli's first lesson is merciless but simple. To seem powerful, become scarce, not by vanishing, but by appearing on your own terms. If people expect you to always answer, you're a servant. If they wait for your word, you're a master. Scarcity isn't weakness. It's a controlled silence that forces the world to make the first move. When you speak, every word carries weight. When you appear, every glance becomes meaningful. This is how leaders, warriors, and cunning men throughout history became larger than life, by refusing to be common. Look at how rulers once behaved. They lived behind walls, unseen, unreachable. Their appearances were deliberate, orchestrated, and rare. Those who sought their audience waited weeks, sometimes months, just for a glimpse. This was not arrogance. It was strategy. By restricting access, they magnified their worth. People revere what they cannot easily touch. Now contrast that with the man who is always there, always visible, always available. His words lose their weight. His absence goes unnoticed. His return brings no anticipation. He becomes background noise, familiar, predictable, and disposable. Even generosity loses its power when it becomes routine. When you make yourself too available, you teach others to consume you without gratitude. They take your time, your energy, your loyalty, and offer nothing in return. Why? because you've trained them to believe your supply is endless. Worse still, constant exposure reveals your cracks. The more they see you, the more they notice your flaws, your doubts, your mistakes, your humanity. Mystique dissolves. What was once extraordinary becomes ordinary. And once ordinary, it becomes replaceable. Machiavelli understood this brutal symmetry. Power lives in perception as much as in reality. A leader who appears rarely controls his image. A leader who appears constantly loses control of how others see him. This truth extends beyond thrones and crowns. In business, the entrepreneur who shows up to every meeting is treated like an employee. The executive who replies instantly to every email appears idle, not efficient. In love, the man who's always available is tolerated, not desired, while the one who is scarce becomes an obsession. It's the same law everywhere. What is abundant is ignored. What is rare is pursued. When you give people unlimited access to yourself, you make yourself cheap. You may think you're building loyalty, but you're really teaching others that your time is free, that you are replaceable. Machiavelli's wisdom was ruthless because it was true. He advised rulers to control not only their actions, but their visibility. By appearing rarely, they seemed occupied, important, dangerous. By withholding themselves, they created a vacuum, and power always flows toward a vacuum. People feared exclusion. They fought for favor. Every word, every gesture from the prince became priceless. If you want to command power in your career, your circle, or your relationships, you must learn to resist the instinct to always show up, to always respond, to always be seen. Availability feels like strength, but it silently erodes authority. It kills mystique. It hands others control over your time, your focus, your worth. The solution isn't arrogance, it's discipline. Appear less, speak less, offer less. Make your presence something felt, not assumed. When you vanish, they should feel it like oxygen leaving the room. When you return, it should feel like a privilege. Power has two forms, the kind people can measure, and the kind they can only feel. Scarcity builds the second kind. It's not about what you own or say. It's about what people believe you could do, but choose not to. When you limit your presence, their imagination fills the silence. They assume you're busy with greater plans, meeting powerful allies, plotting moves they can't see. Their fear of being excluded strengthens your legend. Speculation becomes loyalty. Anxiety turns to obedience. Scarcity makes your silence deafening. When you rarely speak, every word hits like a decree. A pause feels like a test. People analyze your tone, your glance, your silence, and they build myths around what you didn't say. Scarcity also magnifies your presence. When you appear, it's an event. Your approval feels like a blessing. Your attention becomes addictive because it's rare. A king doesn't stroll the streets daily, but when he steps onto the balcony, the crowd holds its breath. Scarcity makes others protect your image. Those who wait for your attention defend you fiercely, not out of loyalty, but out of fear of losing access. Your favor becomes a currency, and they will fight to keep it. Scarcity also turns absence into pressure. When you're not around, People wonder where you are, who you're meeting, what you're planning. Their minds create stories, usually in your favor. They assume you have better options. They fear being replaced. That fear makes them chase harder, obey quicker, respect deeper. Power never comes from pursuit. It comes from being pursued. Scarcity isn't a tactic. It's an identity. The moment you stop throwing yourself at every person, every chance, every demand, your worth multiplies. When your time is guarded, your words measured and your presence earned, people stop taking you for granted. They feel your silence. They await your return. And when you do appear, they listen. Scarcity creates dependency. When they need you more than you need them, the balance shifts. You no longer chase validation. They chase you. You no longer beg for attention. They compete for it. You no longer seek power. Seeks you. True scarcity transforms perception. People stop seeing you as a man. They start seeing you as a force. They whisper your name when you're not there. They analyze your silence, fear your distance, and crave your favor. Your absence gains weight. Your presence becomes priceless. Your aura grows larger than life, not through magic, but through restraint. Anyone can flood the world with noise. Few have the strength to hold it back. Scarcity demands patience. It demands silence where others speak, distance where others beg. Restraint where others over-explain. The weak crave attention. The strong make the world crave them. But scarcity comes with a cost. It must be backed by strength. If you are scarce but hollow, they will eventually see through you. If you are scarce and strong, your legend grows with every silence. This is Machiavelli's law of scarcity. It isn't gentle, it isn't moral, but it works. In palaces, in boardrooms, in love, in life, the world doesn't reward the desperate. It rewards the rare. So stop explaining every move. Stop showing every card. Stop giving your presence to those who haven't earned it. Be the one they can't reach. Be the one they whisper about. Be the one whose silence feels heavier than anyone else's words. You've just learned something dangerous, something the world hides behind politeness. Don't waste it. Use it. Be scarce. Be wanted. Be feared. And when you enter a room, let them feel how rare you are, long before you say a single word.